It's October 8, 2024. 1 year ago yesterday, Israel experienced the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. People of conscience and people of faith celebrated, commemorated, and reflected on this somber day. But unfortunately, the people of Israel remain under attack. Missiles were still fired at them while they tried to commemorate and console one another. Domestically, we've got 27 days left in this election, and Florida is bracing for the hurricane of a lifetime. But don't worry, Kamala Harris is on a media tour. She can't be bothered to help people in red states, red towns, or allies under siege by barbarians. No, but she's got plenty of time for interviews on The View, 60 Minutes, Howard Stern Show, Stephen Colbert, and the Call Her Daddy podcast, a podcast that likes to discuss sex, blowjobs, and abortions. I guess they called her in to be a subject matter expert. I'm Bryan Rudnick, host of Rally for the Republic. I'm fearlessly broadcasting from the not-so-sunny Sunshine State. I'll discuss all of this and more right after the break.
This is a battle cry for the American way of life and a relentless pursuit of truth and justice. It comes from a voice with unmatched experience and unyielding resolve. Join us as we dissect current events and tip the scales in your favor. This is Rally for the Republic with your host, Bryan Rudnick.
Bryan Rudnick here in the Rally for the Republic headquarters. I'm fearlessly broadcasting, even though the rain is a-pounding, the wind is windy, and it's only going to get worse, especially if you're Kamala Harris, because you probably just saw the New York Times Siena poll that was released just as I was preparing, showing Trump ahead of Kamala in Florida and Texas. But I'll get to those details later. First, I want to talk about presidential timber, the leadership game. When you think about leaders in the election and you're looking for the contrast and you're trying to figure out how you're going to vote, and there's still Americans out there trying to figure that out. And we're not going to get into last week's debate between Waltz and Vance. They said they had a lot in common or a lot they agreed on, and the media wants you to think that. And either way, I say J.D. Vance did a great job. He earned points. He did what he was supposed to do, not mess up. I'd argue he gained points and Waltz lost points. After all, Waltz admitted he's sometimes a knucklehead. Who says that? It's worse than being Admiral Stockdale in the 1992 debate. But do you remember that? Who am I? Why am I here? Well, I'll put that in the social media posts. But we're going to talk about a knucklehead who might become president. Because Americans are suffering, okay, from the devastation of Hurricane Helene, and the knucklehead who might become president, the sitting vice president, Kamala Harris, okay? She's nowhere to be found when the people need her. Donald Trump rushed there to be with them in Georgia, just like he did for the people of East Palestine and the people of Parkland and other tragic events. And it took several days for Harris to get there. And I've heard from people who are on the ground in Georgia that it was a complete charade when she got there. You want to remind you to look at her body language from the press conference. She brought people in to do fake interviews for the media that aren't even from those parts of Georgia. And the real victims didn't get to be interviewed because they were worried the real victims would say the truth, that the federal government abandoned them. Okay? Kamala Harris came in for the photo op, and that was it, not to help. And now we're hearing story after story about the failures of FEMA. We're hearing about money diverted to illegal aliens from these emergency funds for U.S. citizens. And we're hearing about bureaucracy that's keeping FEMA agents from helping Americans. All the while, Kamala Harris is on a media blitz. Podcast after podcast, 60 Minutes, and The View Today, and Howard Stern and Colbert. And then more podcasts are coming her way. Americans are suffering, but this shy and demure candidate for President Kamala Harris can finally do the one-on-one interview. It just took a few months and how many years of public office. So what's the point, you might be asking? America's going to the polls right now, okay? We got mail-in votes, vote by mail, early voting, and 27 days. I'm marching to my polling station along with hopefully hundreds of millions of Americans to cast ballots. Don't let me down. Don't be worse than Iraq, where people get their purple and blue fingers, okay? So 27 days from now, the world's either going to be saved or it's going to be the end if we survive the hurricane approaching Florida, Milton. But at the end of the day, I actually don't think people are going to the polls casting a ballot for who's going to let them kill babies in the womb or not. And I don't think Americans going to polls to cast a ballot, with few exceptions, for the candidate who's going to support their ability to legally buy marijuana or pass green new energy deals. Americans who are voting, okay, are typically older. They're typically settled. They've got something to lose. They got a business. They've got money. They've got a retirement. They've got children. You got senior citizens who are also worried about leaving something to the next generation. And we've got several generations of minorities in this country who are now as much stakeholders in this country as those who have descended from the Mayflower. And believe it or not, they care about the same issues because they're Americans, because they have common sense. So they care about the economy. They care about border security. They care about national security. They don't care about their skin color. They care about keeping our nation, our communities, our families safe. It's the things we all want. Common sense Americans want good paying jobs, good health care, and to lower prices on everything from groceries to gas to insurance and everything we want to be gluttonous about. You want to go out and purchase. Christmas is coming. It's Amazon Prime Day. You want to go purchase everything that's got a Prime Day deal going. Let's face it, you can't do that if you have no money to buy food or put gas in the car. But the campaigns know they have to run outreach programs to African Americans and Latino Americans and LGBTQ plus Z, whatever, and of course to young Americans. And after these storms come through, Americans are going to be reminded of how badly they want to force the government out of their lives, because you think you want the government in your life when this crisis is coming, and then you find out that the government's letting you down. Ask the people in North Carolina and Georgia right now. You want the government out of your life. With Kamala, you get more useless government. With Donald Trump, you get the government out of your life. That's part of the contrast that Americans need to make, okay? Because the senior citizens and those going to vote typically understand you've got something to lose. And that's how votes are going to be decided. Americans want a leader, a person who embodies strength. When you look at Kamala Harris, when you hear that whiny, nasally voice that does not embody strength or confidence. Yes, Donald Trump is mean and gruff and rough, and he's a product of a certain age of an American male from Manhattan. But we need somebody who can bring back that Teddy Roosevelt Rough Riders timber to both the national and international stage. And we all have a different version of what all this means to be presidential. And I've talked about being presidential in prior episodes. It has a different meaning today than it did when we elected Ronald Reagan to play that part in 1980. And when you want a symbol of power combined with the American symbol of success, in 2016, we elected Donald Trump, and the left couldn't handle it. And capitalism was being thrown in their face. And oh my gosh, capitalism and Donald Trump and success, and he's going to shut the border down and all these things, and he's cutting taxes and he's cutting regulations, and oh, they just couldn't have it. No, the Washington crowd and the deep state needed to put an end to it. So what do they do? And what are they going to do? I'm going to talk about that after the break.
You are listening to Rally for the Republic with your host, Bryan Rudnick.
Bryan Rudnick here. Welcome back to Rally for the Republic. As I was preparing for the show, the New York Times Siena poll came out showing Kamala Harris getting whooped in Florida by 13 points. Donald Trump is schooling her, and he's doing it in Texas, and Florida is no longer in play for the Democrats. That's what they're saying at this poll. And Trump's got a 55% support in Florida, 41% for Harris. Pollster Nate Cohen says this is consistent with other New York Times polls for Florida, and he's got a 6-point lead on her in Texas. Now, this is not necessarily entirely great news for Trump. I'll explain why in a moment. Rick Scott and Ted Cruz probably had smiles on their faces, and a lot of the congressional delegations down ballot who are hoping to benefit from all this. So what does this mean? Florida's not in play. The left's plan to get out ballot initiatives on pot, ballot initiatives on abortion, and turning out blue and purple voters ain't working. So 27 days, the Democrats got to work to undo these numbers. They literally have to flip them. And anybody with a little bit of experience in politics understands and knows there's going to be only one formula. One formula is the only way to get this done. You've got to destroy, decimate, and do anything you can to just keep Donald Trump from looking viable, okay? The left has already put up their best efforts to prop up Kamala from the moment Joe Biden decided he wasn't running to the convention and beyond. And then Donald Trump almost became a martyr, and they had to undo that. But I want you to go to your friends and your family members, and I want you to ask them, how do you feel? Isn't it great and wonderful that Kamala Harris got $100 million to help the people in North Carolina after Hurricane Helene? Waffle Houses aren't even open, by the way. It's so bad. But she was nice enough to get $175 million sent to Lebanon. Somehow as part of the America Last foreign policy, We've given now $385 million to people in Lebanon who want to kill us and our friends in Israel. That's what Kamala is doing for us. How's that working out for you? How's that working out for the kids who have to wonder if they're going to be killed at their schools because there's not enough school resource officers? Or the crime in cities like Chicago because there's not enough police officers because the money's going to Lebanon, okay, and Ukraine. So when you want to contrast leadership in this presidential election, looking at the candidates and the nominees for vice president, I want you to look at what happened yesterday. Donald Trump visited the revered Lubavitcher Rebbe's gravesite where he prayed and showed respect and homage to Jews and the people of Israel. And if you don't know who the Lubavitcher Rebbe was, you should look it up because it says a lot about Donald Trump for having spent time going there. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, I don't know that she found 30 minutes to commemorate October 7th. I can point to about 15 minutes of a press conference where she planted a pomegranate tree in the backyard of the vice president's residence. And then she trotted out her supposedly Jewish husband, the worst Jew in America, brought him to the podium. And I'm going to tell you again, just look at her body language when she talks about Jews in Israel. It'll tell you everything you need to know. But I'm pretty confident Kamala Harris did not dedicate a total of 30 minutes to support for Jews, support for the Jewish community in Israel on October 7th of 2024. Okay? But Donald Trump didn't just stop at the Lubavitcher Rebbe's gravesite to pray and ask for whatever he privately chose to ask of God. He also held a rally or an event in Doral, Florida at his property. Miriam Adelson came and introduced him and made it clear that under his watch, never again will have meaning. But you didn't hear those words from Kamala. In fact, I think that even one of the best speeches yesterday was given by J.D. Vance, better than his debate performance. And I'll put that up, the C-SPAN link, so you can see that. See the dichotomy between J.D. Vance's words and Kamala Harris's words. Huge. You could drive like a fleet of semi-trucks could drive through it. That's how different it was. But don't waste too much time on social media, even though I'm going to continue to post these links and have my team post these links, because you've got to get out there to your friends and family, your loved ones, anybody else you know, anybody else you meet for the next 26 and a half days, and you've got to persuade them. Yes, I'm actually going to advocate the one-on-one persuasion. Don't worry about the mass media side of persuasion. Leave that to the campaigns, the super PACs, people like me. We're going to handle that. You've got to handle the one-on-one. Because America needs a leader who's going to fix the economy, secure the border, and keep our families safe. So I'm continuing to give you the ammo you need, the notebook that should be by your side. Because if you want to have a nice person be commander-in-chief, somebody who feels your pain, kind of like Bill Clinton would talk about, that's unfortunate, because when we hire a president, a commander-in-chief, we're not hiring a rabbi. We're not hiring a priest. We're not hiring a potentate to do the job, okay? It literally takes a special kind of person. And when I say special, I don't mean it in a derogatory way. It takes a person who has enough confidence. A bit of narcissism is at play and a bit of life experience. And hopefully there's some selfless service built into all that, to volunteer for the job that they get paid $400-something a year for, and who understands that even if you're not Donald Trump, you might have to take a bullet, and who understands that your life is not your own, but you're going to have all this power and ability to change the world and maybe save it. So we need somebody in that environment who understands all this, who understands the importance of the role, the job, etc. Hopefully they don't become a victim of a bullet promoting an America First agenda. And, I have my doubts on that, because I actually don't believe the Democrats are capable of acting civil anymore. I don't think they're going to mind if Donald Trump takes another bullet, but they don't want him to be a martyr or a victor. So they're going to do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Republicans don't act like this. The Democrats do. This is literally par for the course with them. They will do whatever it takes to keep Donald Trump from becoming a martyr or a victim. They're going to encourage Jack Smith to file baseless charges. They'll probably trot out another woman, and she'll claim to have been harassed by Trump, slept with them, whatever. Who knows? They're going to promote various ideas about how Trump is going to damage, dismantle, destroy democracy. And, he'll do it by contesting the November election or passing a Trump abortion ban like Kamala likes to lie about and keeps promoting. And, of course, there are the blue states now. They're very worried about the Trump effect, so they are enacting Trump proofing. I'll post something about that. And they're getting their friends in the media to promote stories about the benefits of the Steele dossier and the man who was behind it all. And there was a big expose, I believe, in the Washington Post or some other liberal rag this weekend almost like turning the man into a hero for promoting the lies that Hillary Clinton paid him to promote. But Trump literally could be forced to take a bullet because these people are so sick and they rile up the crazies in their base and they don't care. And then there's the man who's trying to help him and literally trying to help America, Elon Musk. Now, whatever you think of Elon Musk and how eccentric he is, the man's got the Starlink service and he's offering it for free to victims of the hurricane, okay? And he wants to safeguard the election. He's putting his money where his mouth is. He's putting up a lot of money to prove that. Yeah, I'm sure he's got business interests he wants to protect, like putting shuttles in space and Starlink, but he's an American and he also wants to promote free speech. And oh my God, what a crime to promote free speech. So you know what? That's got him a target on his back. And who's putting another target on his back? Hillary Clinton. You remember good old Hillary? She's telling the media and big tech that they've got to censor Elon Musk. He's such a threat. But here's the scary part. We actually know that Hillary Clinton is capable of making people disappear. Just ask, I believe his name was Vince Foster, right? The beginning of the Clinton White House years. So what does this all mean, okay? We've heard about white dudes for Kamala. You've heard me talk about that in prior episodes. And as I predicted in prior episodes, they weren't going to get the job done. And they haven't, according to the Team Kamala. So now, thank God, in America, we got porn stars for Kamala. And they've stepped up to the plate. Obviously, when I say thank God, I'm being sarcastic. So these people are running around and apparently they make adult entertainment of some sort. I don't know their names. I saw them in an article. They were not familiar to me. And they're claiming that Donald Trump is promoting Project 2025, a lie that we've heard Team Kamala promote. And they're saying Project 2025 seeks to ban pornography. So the A plus B plus C for them is that Donald Trump supporting Project 2025 will ban pornography. Now, Donald Trump has obviously disavowed that numerous times in the national media. But the whole point of what they're doing is they think that young men in America are so screwed up that if white dudes for Kamala with their DEI leadership didn't convince you to vote for Kamala, porn stars for Kamala are going to convince men in America, young men in America, to vote for Kamala. Think about that. Think of how crazy and sick that is. That they know what I've said already is that men in America are completely turned off by Kamala. So they've got to find the most debased and disgusting and vile way to convince you to vote for Kamala Harris against your own interests. Because I can't imagine there's anybody out there who isn't sick and saying, forget the economy, forget inflation, forget border security, pornography. Clearly that's the issue. Yeah, because like abortion wasn't bad enough. Okay. So the way they're going to try to decimate and destroy Trump after they get the pornographers going is they've got the TV ad blitz ready to go. And unfortunately, the numbers look pretty darn strong for Team Kamala and her super PAC allies. And they've been making adjustments since August, okay? And they're not going to prop up Kamala. It's all seek and destroy, baby. Seek and destroy like a World War II submarine. So they're going to bombard airwaves. They're going on with specific messages about unique issues, targeted communities, targeted voters, and they're going to drop pornography stuff here and the abortion stuff there, and Trump's going to end democracy over there, and they're going to keep telling the lies like Goebbels did, okay? And they don't want you to know the truth about Kamala. It's a big smokescreen. They're just going to gaslight America because they don't want you Americans focused on facts like Kamala doing interviews today instead of helping people in North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And they don't want you to know that she's lied about Governor DeSantis not taking her call, returning her call when she's trying to offer aid. And he's made it clear. He doesn't know what call. He didn't get one. He never heard from one. Nobody called him directly. And he said, it's funny. All of a sudden, 3.5 years later, she's claiming to call and want to offer support. Never heard from her before. He heard from the president, but 3.5 years, he still hadn't heard from her. Doesn't know why she thinks he's not returning her call when he hadn't heard from her. And then there was the 60 Minutes interview the other day. You got to watch that whole thing. I'm going to post at least a link to the part about Israel, where her body language tells you everything you need to know about how much she hates Israel, Jews, and Benjamin Netanyahu. And obviously, they don't want you to understand that she wants to send money to Gaza and to Lebanon and literally cripple Israel's defenses. You will see. In that interview, she actually thinks rescuing the hostages is like the last priority of what needs to happen there. Can you imagine how sick this person is? We need a ceasefire and we need to rebuild these things and the hostages, last on the list. 100+ people whose friends, family members, moms, dads, sisters, brothers, husbands, wives, children are waiting for them to come home, don't even know if they're alive, don't even know if we'll even get their bodies back. But she's like, low priority. Really, we got humanitarian aid. Supposedly returning hostages is not equivalent to her perspective on humanitarian aid. Interesting. Okay. That's probably why she and Tim Walz turned down the invitation from the Chabad to attend the Rebbe's gravesite like Trump did yesterday. Because they are vile, sick, godless people, okay? They don't understand the significance. They don't understand that returning hostages is paramount, that peace through strength has a meaning. If these people were nice people, they wouldn't have taken hostages and put them in civilian homes and tunnels and all the other nasty things that they did to American citizens, let alone the Israeli citizens. Okay, but look at her body language in that interview as she talks about Israel, Netanyahu, the whole situation. Then go to the other interviews that she's having and look at her talk about abortion and every other topic. Look at the difference in facial expressions, whiny, nasally voice, and everything else that occurs. And they're definitely not going to want you to hear the full truth about Tim Walz. Okay? Because when you think about a ticket, now you're not really voting, as we've discussed before, you're not really voting for the vice presidential nominee. But it's something you ought to consider who's on the ticket. A guy who might end up by accident in the Oval Office. And this guy is governor of Minnesota, was in charge of what was termed a quote-unquote massive fraud schemes that occurred under his watch. He turned a blind eye. And we all know he's a knucklehead, so I guess that makes sense. Okay, folks, so what am I trying to tell you in all this? Okay? At the end of the day, you're the Rally for the Republic listener. And you know the show is about America for the Americans. It's for patriots like you. It's about people who are doing the hard work to save the Republic. I am not here to convince the uninformed American. That is not at all my goal here. I'm here to help you gather the ammo you need, to teach you some inside baseball, to give you facts that you can go to. So one-on-one, or maybe in a small group, you can help persuade the uninformed and uneducated American. Sometimes that means we're all going to lose a friend or two. We're going to piss off a family member. I have one I know I don't hear from because he just can't get over the fact that I realize Donald Trump is the best candidate to be president. And he'll scream at me about that. It's really unfortunate. I'm sure you have family members like that too. But as we all know, saving our republic is worth that minor sacrifice. Hopefully the people we care about who just can't see the forest for the trees will wake up before it's too late, because the left is gaslighting us and they're gaslighting voters, and they don't want us to hear, know, and recognize that Kamala Harris is incompetent. That's why they protected her for all these months. They knew she was incompetent on day one. Joe Biden knew she was incompetent. That's why he selected her to be the vice presidential nominee. He knew he didn't have to worry. Well, I guess his calculus was wrong. And I can promise you, Kamala Harris, who now admits to owning a Glock semi-automatic pistol that she once fired at the gun range, came out during the Oprah interview. It apparently is old news, but I can promise you she doesn't want the left knowing about that. She's one of those dirty gun owners, and she doesn't want you to know that she has vouched for Joe Biden's mental fitness and stamina. So I'm going to remind you about the most important thing that you can take away from today. Joe Biden was on The View in the last few weeks, and he admitted, he says Kamala's competent, and he consulted her in every major decision. She was always involved. And you may remember in a prior episode, I said she's either going to have to own that or she's going to have to dispute Joe Biden's competency, which is not good for her. So she said she stands by Joe Biden's competency, and he made those claims. So now it is your job to make sure that everyone you know has the full loop on the problem. Okay? We're not circling back. Okay? We have the evidence. The full puzzle has been solved. If you are an American who seeks to vote for a competent, strong leader, it can't be Kamala Harris. If you're looking for a leader to solve the border crisis, Joe Biden told you Kamala is responsible for it. If you want to fix the economy, fix inflation, make America financially strong again, Joe Biden just told you Kamala ain't got it. In fact, she doesn't have it so badly. The media is currently lying and saying Trump's plans for cutting taxes will add to the debt. They don't want to tell you that cutting taxes will make Americans' lives better, but they're going to lie and say that he's adding to the debt in comparison to Kamala Harris's plans. Why? Can the people here not have their money back in their pocket and then go spend the money and pay taxes that way? the thinking on that. Just another lie to bash and decimate and destroy Donald Trump. But Kamala Harris, based on Joe Biden's words and the fact that she believes he's competent, she's responsible for America's crime crisis, whether it's at the border, whether it's with fentanyl, sex and human trafficking, and especially the gun violence in places like Chicago and New York, when she was the head of the gun violence task force and did nothing about it. And she's responsible for failing to resolve the national security threats we face. Whether it's China, whether it's Iran, Russia, their proxies, whether it's balloons flying over her country or cybersecurity hacks. She's part of the team that did nothing about it. And I want you to remind your friends and loved ones why we cannot reward Kamala Harris with the job of commander-in-chief. Quite frankly, it comes down to one key phrase: America deserves better. We deserve better than a person who is not only incompetent, but a person who is more comfortable hating America, hating our friends in Israel. We deserve better than that kind of person. A person who can't show respect for God, who can't show respect for the flag, who can't show respect for people who are suffering. We deserve better. So, you know, the results of this election are going to depend on you getting out there and spreading that message and educating your people. So while the media and the left gaslights them, you educate them. I'm Bryan Rudnick, and I thank you for being a listener to Rally for the Republic and hearing this whole episode. Please remember to share, like, and stay engaged. Continue to write. Feedback at rallyfortherepublic.com. That's feedback at rally4therepublic.com. Please stay in the fight. Do not give up, no matter what poll you see, no matter what you hear in the news, no matter what garbage they throw at Donald Trump. Do not give up the ship. God bless America, and God bless our friends in Israel. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Rally for the Republic, where we are fighting for America's future. Visit 1776coalition.com. Rally for the Republic podcast is available on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and download. Join Bryan Rudnick next time as we continue to fight for the American way of life and challenge the hypocrisy. This is Rally for the Republic.